I also, while we're on the topic generally of how Trump interacts with foreign leaders, let's move over to Russia and Putin, and the fact that it appears, John, that Putin has been far less visible. I know he's already, of course, keenly aware of the possibility that somebody's going to take him out, but the latest we're hearing is that they're getting their butt kicked by Ukraine, and Putin barely shows up. He had a much watered down version of the Victory Day parade a few days ago. Zelensky kind of teased him with a social media post saying, "Okay, I'll allow you to have your little parade." What is going on with Putin? Is he polling? And I don't know how you do polling in Russia, but somehow polling shows that Putin's standing has dropped. What are your thoughts on Putin and Ukraine writ large?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Ukraine war continues, and there's still a lot of deaths, a lot of destruction, and the Ukrainians really have demonstrated tremendous resolve, and not just resilience, but resolve and innovation and creativity in terms of being able to stop the big Red Army from further gains, especially over the past year. So the battlefield, it does seem to be shifting a bit more in Ukraine's favor. It's still tough. There's no resolution in sight at this point, but I think what the Ukrainians have been able to demonstrate recently is their ability to carry out strikes deep inside of Russia, including in Moscow. And there was a drone strike that hit a building just a couple of miles from, the Kremlin, I think, or where the parade was going to be. And it showed that the Ukrainians could get through the Russian air defenses, which is why Putin sacked the general in charge of Russia's air defenses shortly thereafter. And so Putin has not shown himself much, as you pointed out. There probably are, reports that he's getting about either Ukrainian attempts to strike him, or some opposition within the Russian political circles that he might be concerned about. But that's one of the reasons why he really scaled down the parade last weekend, because I don't think he wanted to have some of Russia's weaponry on display and then get hit by Ukrainian drones. So I think Putin is also glad that the United States standing on the world stage has diminished, but I think he's still surprised at just how the Ukrainians have been able to withstand the military pressure, how Zelensky is standing up for himself, and how the Europeans, I think, are also stepping up in light of Trump's signals that he's going to be pulling back from the support that we've given to Ukraine over the past 4 years.
You've recently returned from a trip to Europe. What did you pick up in terms of whether the degree to which Europe is going to step up even more in support of Ukraine in the absence of American support?
Well, I think a lot of the Europeans are just shocked at what is happening with this transatlantic alliance that really has been the hallmark of Western peace and security over the last 75, 80 years. They see the United States in a much different light than they did over the course of previous presidents, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That Trump has this mindset that America first means America is going to go it alone, and the United States is not going to either fulfill its obligations under Article 5 of the NATO treaty, or that the United States is going to be scaling back its support for Europe's security, such as pulling out 5,000 troops from Germany. So a lot of the Europeans that I've heard from are really thinking through now what they need to do in order to hedge against this new U.S. posture toward Europe. And when Trump was elected in 2016, I think a lot of people thought that was an aberration, that it doesn't reflect sentiment in the United States. But Trump was elected a second time, and he does reflect, I think, a unfortunate view among many Americans that we can be much more of a sort of an isolationist country, that we can get by without all of these relationships around the globe. It's a very, very, I think, short-sighted and an ignorant view, because the world is so interconnected, and our peace and security and prosperity really depends so heavily on our ability to work in that geostrategic global environment. and take advantage of our muscularity, of our economic and financial and political and military power. And so they are now looking at what they need to do again to offset this loss of American prestige as well as American support.
Yeah.
And so are they going to go along with America's efforts to try to, not isolate China, but to try to prevent China from making inroads in the economic sphere? I do think that it's a very dynamic period, and a number of the countries globally are going to be thinking and acting in a manner that's different than the prevailing views, I guess, of the previous U.S. administrations.
Yeah, America First makes for a great campaign slogan, but it, as you referenced, it clearly has turned into America Alone. And where you and I come from in the intelligence community, we know. We've seen it. We know the degree to which we rely on our allies and their intel services. And the idea that you don't need friends, that America doesn't need friends in the world, is just incredibly ignorant.
It is. And this interconnectedness of this global environment has just deepened and accelerated over the past several years. Which is why I think China has been very, very effective in terms of using its high technology and other types of economic and trade inroads to enhance not just its economic prospects, but also its political relationships, its ability to access ports. And so, again, unfortunately, I think, Trump comes at this with very little understanding and appreciation. He doesn't really even care,
Right?
Because, as you pointed out, he sees it's, America alone, that we don't need others. And the way he is just, disregarded, international norms, talking about Canada as the 51st state, taking over Greenland from a NATO partner. It's so disruptive, but also I think it does reflect this sentiment that is not just Donald Trump, but that the United States can do what it wants, might makes right. And it's a very, very worrisome, recipe for, the future of U.S. interests and global interests.
Yeah, it is dangerous, and on many levels.